Let's talk about the infamous LaLande kitchen. For anyone who has watched Stephanie Jarvis Château Diaries for more than 5 minutes, you'll know this kitchen isn't just where food gets made, it's practically its own character in the series. And depending on who you ask, it's either charmingly rustic or an inspector's worst nightmare. Now, on the surface, it's easy to get swept away in the aesthetics: baskets of vegetables spilling over the counters, mismatched china, quirky decorative bits stacked in every corner. It's the kind of space that photographs beautifully. But what viewers often forget is that, behind those whimsical shots, there are actual people trying to cook in that kitchen. And that's where the drama and the comedy really begins. At the center of it all, we have Marie. Over the years, she's become the quiet force that keeps the kitchen running. You don't see her vying for the spotlight. She's not prancing around in costume or making grand speeches on camera. Instead, she's at the stove, chopping, sautéing, and pulling off what honestly looks like culinary miracles in less than ideal circumstances. Because let's face it, LaLande's kitchen isn't a chef's dream. First, there's the clutter factor. The room is overflowing with plates, platters, teapots, and random decorative objects that have migrated there over time. What should be functional workspace is instead a kind of museum of porcelain and collectibles. Viewers joke about it, but if you've ever actually tried to cook in a crowded kitchen, you know it can be stressful. And yet, Marie rarely complains. She adapts, she improvises, and she keeps moving. Then there's Dave. Poor Dave. If Marie is the queen of the stove, Dave is the workhorse of the scullery. His role seems to revolve around washing, drying, and putting away endless piles of dishes. And if you're wondering why there's always such a mountain of dishes, the answer is simple: LaLande doesn't exactly run like a tight ship. Between Stephanie's filming schedules, parties, and the constant flow of guests, meals generate mess at a speed that feels almost comical. To make matters worse, they don't appear to rely on a proper industrial dishwasher the way you'd expect at a place that feeds so many people. Instead, Dave finds himself scrubbing, stacking, and drying by hand, all while the chaos of filming and entertaining swirls around him. It's easy to imagine how thankless that job could feel. Now, what makes this dynamic fascinating is how different Marie's and Dave's energies are from Stephanie's. Stephanie, as everyone knows, thrives on performance. She loves the camera, she loves being at the center of attention, and she has built her entire channel around cultivating a kind of fairy tale fantasy of chateau living. That fantasy is part of why people watch, but it also means the mundane realities, like dirty pans and piles of mugs, are pushed onto others, and here's where the friction shows. Marie and Dave represent the behind-the-scenes labor that keeps the illusion alive. Without them, the charming kitchen shots wouldn't be possible. Without someone cooking and cleaning, there would be no feasts for the guests, no cozy moments to film. But they rarely get the recognition or the spotlight. It's interesting to note that whenever Stephanie does pan the camera toward the kitchen staff, there's often a kind of awkwardness. Marie doesn't ham it up. Dave doesn't crack jokes for the vlog. They just keep working, quietly aware that their roles aren't glamorous. For some viewers, that humility is exactly why they love Marie. She comes across as real, grounded, and unbothered by the theatrics. But others can't help but wonder how long anyone could tolerate being cast as a background character in someone else's story. Let's talk about the kitchen setup itself for a moment. Because honestly, the inefficiency is kind of staggering. When you think about a chateau with dozens of rooms, regular guests, and constant entertaining, you'd expect a streamlined, professional kitchen, maybe stainless steel counters, heavy-duty appliances, lots of storage. Instead, LaLande's kitchen seems to be stuck in a tug-of-war between function and fantasy. Every inch is decorated. Every surface holds something fragile, and the actual workspace shrinks as a result. For viewers, that tension can be entertaining. But for Marie and Dave, it's the daily reality of trying to cook meals for a crowd in a space that was designed more for show than for use. It's the classic Chateau Diaries paradox: everything looks enchanting, but underneath, the cracks are obvious. Now, let's add Philip into the mix, Stephanie's partner, often seen fussing with teacups or rearranging china. While Stephanie orchestrates the big picture fantasy, Philip seems intent on curating the details, particularly the endless stream of porcelain collections. And while that may delight collectors and decorators, it also means even more clutter lands in the one room that desperately needs less. For Marie and Dave, the influx of knickknacks is yet another obstacle in an already cramped working environment, so what we end up with is this layered, almost symbolic picture: Marie sweating at the stove, Dave buried in dishwater, and Philip carefully polishing a plate for the next video thumbnail. All while Stephanie flits in and out, narrating the magic of chateau life. It's both absurd and fascinating, a reminder that behind every curated image there's a lot of unseen labor. This brings us to a bigger question: how sustainable is this setup, really? Can you keep relying on the goodwill of quiet workers like Marie and Dave while the spotlight remains firmly on Stephanie? Viewers have noticed that people at LaLande tend to come and go, sometimes quietly, sometimes with tension. And when it comes to the kitchen, turnover is especially telling. Cooking and cleaning under those conditions isn't just hard work, it's emotionally draining. But maybe that's exactly why Marie has become a kind of fan favorite. In a world of theatrical personalities, she feels steady. She doesn't chase the spotlight, and that makes her stand out even more. Watching her chop vegetables in the middle of the chaos feels almost grounding, a reminder that someone has to keep the chateau fed, no matter how many costume parties or porcelain hauls Stephanie has planned. And what about Dave? For many viewers, he embodies the unsung hero of the household. He's not flashy. He's not constantly chatting on camera, but without him, the pile of dishes would swallow the kitchen whole. The image of him working silently in the background has become almost iconic, proof that the chateau's dream life is built on very real, very unglamorous labor. At the end of the day, the LaLande kitchen is a perfect metaphor for the entire Chateau Diaries project. On the surface, it's whimsical, colorful, and bursting with charm. But just beneath, it's messy, inefficient, and sometimes downright chaotic. And the people who make it function, the Marys and Daves of the world, don't always get the credit they deserve. For viewers, that contrast is part of the fascination. We tune in for the fantasy, but we stay because we can see the cracks. We laugh at the absurdity, we speculate about the behind-the-scenes dynamics, and we recognize that not everything is as magical as it appears. So next time you watch Stephanie sweep dramatically through the kitchen with the camera rolling, take a moment to notice what's happening in the background. Look at Marie quietly stirring a pot. Look at Dave scrubbing away at another mountain of dishes. That's the real story, not the porcelain, not the parties, but the people who keep the machine running. And that's why the kitchen at LaLande is more than just a room. It's a microcosm of the chateau itself, chaotic, beautiful, dysfunctional, and utterly compelling.